Waiting. Still setting. And then, okay, done. Please start.
Okay, so I can start. Has everyone joined? I see people in the waiting room.
Yes, the participant will join.
Okay, so I'm start.
Berat amat.
So I'm starting. So hi everyone. So we are going to have a session on phishing unveiled, malicious JavaScript, and first stage loaders. Can you please keep yourself on mute?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So let's get started. Before that, I'll give a quick introduction about myself. So I work at Quick Heal Technologies, which is an Indian-based antivirus software. I'm a senior security consultant over there, researcher over there. I'm also a Google developer expert on web technologies. I have a YouTube channel, which is named as CryptoWare. And I have been speaker or trainer at various conferences like B-Side Singapore, DevFest, Google I/O, etc. So today's agenda will be very simple. We are not going to get into very advanced part. We will just be talking about the basics, yet how important they are to be discussed about. So the agenda is the overview. Why am I talking about it? And the conclusion. This is as simple as that. So first of all, let's understand what phishing attacks are. And I guess we all are slightly aware what phishing attacks are. So in phishing attacks, basically the attackers or the threat actors would be, presenting those kinds of web applications and websites which will look very trustworthy to you. For example, the facebook.com or the google.com or any other genuine websites are there, and they will try to create a phishing website of it, whose intention is to get your sensitive information. What will be your sensitive information? That will be your password, username, and other details that whichever it may require. Credentials are not the only thing that the phishing attacks target at. There are other things also. So some other types of phishing attacks are email phishing that we are aware of. If you ever go through your spam folder, you'll see there will be a number of phishing mails over there. So they'll be asking you for your credentials, credit card information, debit card information, depending upon the kind of mail that they have sent. And they will ask you to click on a link, and that link would be basically the phishing one. Spear phishing, whaling, smishing, and wishing. We are not getting into those parts right now, but if you want to know, spear phishing is kind of phishing attack that is quite direct. Whaling would be kind of someone from your organization, for example, who is senior to you. The attacker will disguise as that senior person to you, and you will think of him as your senior, and hence you might get, uh, share your information, some details, sensitive information. Smishing and wishing are related to the kind of phishing attacks only. It's just in one case we are sending SMSs, and in the other case we are calling someone, and we are trying to disguise as a genuine user over the phone or over the call. So that's why voice over phishing that we call over here. Now, what is the role of JavaScript? So majority of the phishing attacks happen in HTML or using JavaScript. So majority of the times we see web applications over there. So there are URLs, and this is where JavaScript comes into picture. Because to make your content dynamic, JavaScript plays a very important role, whereas HTML is just a markup language, which is just providing a structure. whereas JavaScript is making that structure usable for you. Okay, and that is why JavaScript is so important to understand while you are trying to learn about phishing. Now, if that is JavaScript is a language, then it will have vulnerabilities. Since JavaScript is a code will have vulnerabilities, and nothing is 100% secure. So if you're writing something, you're creating something, there will be flaws, there will be vulnerabilities, there will be ways how threat actors will try to deceive you, will try to attack you, will try to gather information related to the vulnerability of the JavaScript so that they can perform the attack. So if you see the role of JavaScript in phishing, it's not just that they are simply putting the code to gather your sensitive information, but there are other things also that they are trying to do. So they will take advantage of the existing vulnerabilities in the code or the application or the browser, because we are opening it in the browser. So browser is also a very plays a very important role over here. It can compromise your browser. You can do that. It can lead to data theft, credentials theft. These are certain things that we are very well aware as a result of, or as a as a conclusion of a phishing attack. So it generally tries to perform some kind of data or credential theft. They will also try to do web defacement. Majority of the times when there are attacks that are happening against the government, at that point of time, they perform web defacement. Even if they want to get back at some organization or someone, they will try to do this. So some of the common uses over here that they will obfuscate. Now, what do you mean by obfuscation? So if whenever you're talking about obfuscation, the attackers will try to transform your code in such a way that it's not very visible to you. For example, if the code says var a equal to some string, they will make it in such a way that you're not able to identify what it is trying to do. So it can be of different types. There can be different ways how one can perform the obfuscation, but majority of the times it is done. Now it can be used for genuine reasons also, but a threat actor mostly uses it so that the analyst or the researchers find it difficult to identify what the code is trying to do. Redirection, another thing, like if you went to a genuine website and if it has a vulnerability such that it is getting redirected to some other website, which is for example, a phishing website, then that can happen through JavaScript. Exploit delivery is another thing. And this exploit delivery part is one thing which comes under the first stage loaders that we want to discuss about. Now, whenever there is an attack chain, or if I say that if any kind of attack that happens, so there's a chain that happens. So initially they will try to perform some action. In the middle, they will try to perform some other set of action. And the final stage will be there, which will try to perform some kind of action, which will ultimately achieve their goal. So their goal could be something like stealing all your data. Their goal could be something like disrupting your device. Their goal could be maybe encrypting all your device. It totally depends upon the threat actor, what they are trying to do. So JavaScript here acts as a first stage loader. Basically, the phishing attack acts as a first stage loader. So here they do not just aim at stealing all your credentials, but they also want to deliver the final payload or the middle stage payload into your device. So if I have clicked on a link, I might think that something is happening, but at the back end, it is actually downloading some other samples into my device, and I'm not even aware of that. And that is performing some other a set of actions, which I'll be describing or discussing in a while. So that is first stage loaders. So any attack chain, there is always an initial stage loaders, which is trying to perform the attack. Majority of the times, it's not like that. We are having a direct exe or a final payload that is performing some kind of execution into your device. It has to reach to your device in some way. And you cannot do that directly. You are not going to download it by yourself unless you're downloading some Trojan or something from some fake website. Even in this case, there is a website which is involved, from where you ended up downloading it somewhere. So the purpose, as I mentioned, initial payload delivery and establishing a foothold. What do I mean by these two? So the initial payload delivery could be like, suppose there is a phishing page. I clicked on it. I am thinking of it as a phishing page, which is sharing my credentials to a malicious server. But in the background, it is downloading some malicious file. For example, some PowerShell script, provided I'm using a Windows environment. Now that PowerShell script would be considered as another stage of that attack, which is now helping in establishing a foothold. And now it will be performing other set of malicious actions into my device. The PowerShell could install some other things. It might try to enumerate my device and identify what my device does. And based on that, it will try to perform some other activity. I'll give a very good example of certain attacks that have recently happened. So some real world examples which are specific to phishing or JavaScript as the initial stage loaders could be QBot, TrickBot, Agent Tesla. Agent Tesla is a malware which has used JavaScript as initial stage loaders, but it has also used other file types also, like batch scripts, the ones that you run in your Windows, that is used majority of the times for some automation purposes. So for these reasons, they use. Now Agent Tesla is a kind of rat, whereas TrickBot, QBot can be considered as, they are also information stealers, but they are like banking Trojans. That is something that you can consider. But they will get into your device through email or through phishing. So this is where the initial stage loaders, and why it is important for us to understand what the initial stage loaders are, so that we can identify. Because what happens, if I give you an example, majority of the times if you're using your Windows system and it does have antivirus, and it is going to identify Agent Tesla or TrickBot or any other exe unless it is quite new. It will identify that sample and it will block it. But why do we want initial stage loaders? So that first of all, it will make the user download it into the device. And the second thing would be to create an environment in your system such that the defender is turned off, UAC could be bypassed, and other security and protected situations, whichever is present into your device, that can be removed. And once that is removed, Agent Tesla or QBot or TrickBot, they will run in your device without getting detected, and it will perform its action. And this is the reason why it is very important for us to understand the initial stage attacks that are happening. In some cases, there are ransomware also, like Locky ransomware also gets downloaded into your device where the initial stage has been a JavaScript. Now, as I mentioned, JavaScript has not always been the only source of initial stage attacks. Again, apart from JavaScript, there are PDF files also. There are doc files also. There are VB scripts also. There are lots of non-PE files basically, which is creating an environment so that these final payloads could be run. If I give you an example of ransomware, which is Mallox ransomware, which what it does is it will try to get into your system through a batch file. So that it is a kind of bat loader. So again, this is also a kind of creating an environment, like it is pre-setting the environment for the final malware to run. And that is how they achieve their goals. Now, key indicators of malicious JavaScript. If I give you an example, like some unusual function names, I am not sure if you have heard of dead codes. So in majority of the times also, these JavaScript, even the backloaders or the PowerShell scripts, those non-PE files, what they do is they will keep unusual function names. They will be very gibberish. and they will be very huge and very gibberish. So it will be very difficult for you to identify what the function names are, what are they doing. Sometimes there are a lot of function names that are defined which are not even used later on. So this is a case of dead code that they are doing. Maybe the script that they are running would be just a single liner which is trying to download something from a CNC server, but they have use so many unusual function names and so many dead codes that you as an analyst or a researcher are not able to identify what it is trying to do over here. And this is a kind of obfuscation technique that a malware sample or a threat actor basically would use into their codes. So the initial stage loaders are majority of the times very obfuscated. Again, other than this, heavy obfuscation may also include using some kind of packers, some kind of compression techniques, some kind of encryption techniques. So in those cases, it's not possible for you to de-obfuscate it manually. So you might have to do some sort of debugging in those cases, depending upon the kind of sample it is. Unexplained network requests. As a normal user, you may not even understand or identify that your system is trying to make a network connection to some kind of CNC server and your data is being sent or some kind of backdoor is getting downloaded. As an analyst, we will see a lot of network activities happening over there. What happens in those network activities? So either they are, as I mentioned before, they are sharing all your data, they are sending all your information, all kind of things. Now, why they require? So few things they want to know. If you are a genuine victim, they will gather all your information so that they can steal it and sell it on the dark web. Another reason could be a way to identify if any malware researcher or analyst is trying to do some analysis. So we majority of the times perform these analysis in a sandbox environment. And those sandboxed environment have some names which are pretty common. So if you're using a virtual machine, there are certain DLLs, certain services that are running, and based on that, you can identify. So that is also they are trying to do. So if they share such information to the server, what will the threat actors do at that point of time? They will find different ways to bypass these techniques. Maybe they will try to get into your main host through the virtual machine. That may also happen. And we have also come across a vulnerability which is related to VirtualBox previously. So these things happen. Some behavioral indicators could be unexpected pop-ups. We do see sometimes certain alerts are coming up, and that time, majority of the times they are adwares. We know that whenever we are clicking on any link or we are downloading something and we see something pops up and we get scared if it is a malware. So these things generally happen, and that's how you identify if it is a genuine or it is a malicious website. Again, redirects to unknown URLs. This does happen. We have observed these things also. Requests for sensitive information. Now, if I give you a very proper example of request for sensitive information, could be related to your Android application. Suppose you want to install an application, which is a gaming application. What else do you require in the gaming application? You just need to, you should be able to play the game over there. In case that application is require permissions such as your location, the camera, video, your text, then that is something that you have to get to know about, that what is happening over there. Why does this game require me to provide so much permission? These are asking for sensitive information. I cannot provide access to my camera to a gaming application. Why should I be providing that too? Especially if I'm using my Android phone. It should not be that case. So we have to be very aware of this fact that which kind of applications are we downloading, what kind of permission is it asking. Sometimes in Windows also they do ask, and you can go and change the settings later on, but you have to also see the certificates if it is specific to Microsoft or not. Otherwise you may end up sharing your sensitive information, and these are some of the reasons, ways how you can identify malicious JavaScript. Some of the defense strategies over here could be WAF, Web Application Firewall. If we are talking about JavaScript, then yes. If we are talking about web pages, then Web Application Firewalls is a must. Here I give you an example of very simple JavaScript. What it is doing is there is a link from where it is asking for your username, password, and you're sharing your details over there. It is getting sent to the server, to the malicious server. But there are a lot of other things that happen. Sometimes you do not even need to send your or share any sensitive information. They might be exploiting some kind of vulnerability. Maybe it could be excesses. So as a result, it is trying to steal your cookie. You never know, there are some other applications, some other vulnerabilities also related to that. If you talk about, then server side vulnerabilities can also happen. For example, SQL injection, command injection, these are all there. These may happen, and we cannot ignore those facts. So that is the reason we need to have some security strategies from our end also, such as web application firewalls. Content security policy, these are certain headers that you should always use whenever you're creating a URL. These policies are very important. Secure email gateways, these are also certain things. These are all different strategies for the phishing thing. But if the phishing thing is bypassed, that is a first stage loader, then your device should have some other identification or defense systems, or sorry, softwares to identify those things also. But again, these are very smart. These threat actors are very smart. They find different ways to evade these detections. So uh, we need to have defensive strategy at every stage. It's not just that we are, uh, protecting our device from a malicious exe sample or an application, but we have to take care of the initial part also. I'll come to that, like why it is important. I'll give a very good example of a recent malware, what kind of attacks that it performs. Some best practices are required in every organization, like regular training and awareness. Why is it important? Whether you are in the security domain or not, you should be well aware of certain security awareness, and you should know what is it that it requires. Incident response planning should be one thing, and keeping your software updated, because see, everything is not 100% secure. So you have to find ways like how you can make your device less prone to attacks. So if you have not updated your device, for example, then the attacks which are happening to the previous versions, they will happen against your device. As a result, you are already vulnerable out there. And these malwares do not only take advantage of, you clicking on certain links, they also take advantage of the CVs and the various vulnerabilities that are present, because they know there are users who are aware of those things also, but they do not uh, update their devices often. Excuse me. Now, case study analysis. This is where I will want to, talk about a very basic thing, the very interesting case that has happened. I may not mention the name of the case, but I'll explain what it does. So, as you can see here, that there are 3 stages that I've mentioned. One is initial stage, middle stage, final stage. Now, the middle stage could be stages. Like, of course, there is a first stage and there is a last stage, but there are scenarios when there are a number of stages in between. There is a case where there are minimum 8 layers, 8 stages within the first and the final stage. And I'm using the word minimum. That means there are minimum 10 stages of that attack that is happening, and it is widespread. So what it does is the initial stage, what it has again that phishing link, and it will make you, if you click on that phishing link, it will make you download something. You won't be even aware of what is getting downloaded. So you see there's a shortcut file that gets downloaded, and maybe you have clicked on a genuine link and you did not identify that it was a shortcut file. And once you click on that shortcut file, it will try to make a connection to a server. Now, this is where the middle stages come in between. So whenever it creates a connection to that server, it downloads something. And that exe file, if I say that that is an exe file or an application, that executable, once it gets executed, it will try to enumerate the environment where it has been executed. So it will try to identify whether it is being run in a genuine host machine, or it is being run in a virtual environment, or is it being run in a sandbox environment. If it is being run in a sandbox or a virtual environment, it shares the entire detail of the device to the CNC server, and then it stops. So here, if you run this application into your device, into a virtual machine, the maximum destruction that you can see is that it is stealing information, and that's it. It is not doing anything further than that. And that's where we think that, okay, this is kind of information stealer and it is just stealing the information. But if this application identifies that it is not being run in a virtual machine or a sandbox environment, and it is being running in a host machine, in a genuine machine, it has genuinely infected someone, there are other 7 layers of obfuscation that it has. The term obfuscation that we use, in such cases, they pack themselves also, or maybe they're using some evasion techniques or anti-debugging techniques. So they have some 8 layers of these techniques to unpack themselves or de-obfuscate themselves so that they can run properly in the environment. And the final payload could be anything. It could be a ransomware, it could be an information stealer, it could be a banking Trojan, it can be anything. So this case study is very specific to malware as a service. So it is just providing, it will just deliver any kind of malware. So there has been cases where it has actually infected the entire device and the user is unaware of what has happened, because normally the analyst had identified it as a very simple malware which is just stealing information. But once this malware sees that it is not being running in a virtual environment, it unpacks itself to run in the device, in the system as a real malware, and executes itself and infects the device. Now, depending upon the kind of device and the kind of malware it is, it will perform the action. So the conclusion over here is there can be a number of stages between initial and final stages, and we cannot just, look at the final stage. Like we think that if we are, for example, we are adding detection to the final stage or the final executable, we are protecting our device, but this is not that is happening. In between, a lot of things happen. Like in this case, in the middle stages, there are certain functionalities which is turning off the defenders and the virus protection. They're looking for what all antiviruses are running over there. They'll turn them off so that none of the antivirus and the defender will be able to identify when the final execution happens, or when they will look for any monitoring tools that are happening. If there are monitoring tools, they will exit themselves. If they observe anything suspicious, they will exit themselves, and it will just look like they are gathering those information and sharing it on the CNC server. Now, we think that it is gathering information from the virtual machine, or it may not do a lot of things. But that way, the threat actors are identifying ways to bypass those things. So that way, now here what we observe that it is just gathering information. In the later versions, what we will see that maybe it is not even running in those cases. We have to perform a different kind of analysis to bypass those things. So here our work also comes into picture, where we will have to debug and identify the issues and identify what is it actually doing at that point of time. So concluding everything, phishing attacks are, very sophisticated. Now you cannot consider phishing attacks as a very basic thing, which is just trying to steal your information, but it is doing a lot more than that. So it is also delivering the payload into your devices. Also, it is stealing your credentials. Of course, the basic phishing pages, which we see, the spam pages are still there, but I'm talking about the actual attack chain where it is a very big, where it plays a very big role over there. Understanding real world examples will help you with identifying the key indicators of the malicious activity. For example, in the initial stage, middle stage, in the previous case, when we were discussing about this, why it is important to identify the key indicators, or what could be the key indicators? The key indicators could be like we see connection to a sensitive, to any kind of server. We see some kind of enumeration happening into our device. We suddenly see a number of random files into our device which we did not download. We see all those kinds of malicious activities, and these can be considered as indicators of compromise over here, that yes, the system has been compromised, and yes, this is a malicious sample over here. Implementing robust defense strategies is crucial. We have to, block and identify defensive strategies at the very first stage itself. So if you can identify the attack at the first stage, you will not let the attack happen into the later stages. Of course, we need to have defense strategies for the later stages also in case it gets bypassed, but it is very important to have it at the initial stage. Again, continuous education, keeping yourself aware with the recent attacks and strategies, the various malware threat actors that are happening. We have to be very aware and evolve with the evolving phishing techniques and the new threats that are coming up. So I've kept it quite crisp and simple so that we can have a long discussion on the Q&A. So if you ask me questions, we can have a thorough discussion about the topic. So please ask questions.
Yang mau tanya bisa tulis di komentar di chat, di chat, di teks. Yang mau tanya boleh di teks saja.
Sorry, I did not understand the question.
Yes, if there any question, can text to chat. Possible to get the recording this event is streaming on YouTube. I give you the link.
Okay.
Any question? You can text in the chat room.
You can ask me questions over here. You can connect me through my LinkedIn profile, Twitter. There also, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Okay, is there any kind of software can be detected that phishing links? Okay, so I am not sure of the softwares, but of course, there are a number of softwares that can help you with the detection. In fact, if you're using any kind of antiviruses, those antivirus also have some extensions through which they can identify if that is a phishing page or not. I hope that answers your question. The antiviruses themselves have those extensions. Like if you set up an antivirus, some antivirus have those features where you can have web browser extensions to identify phishing or spam pages. I hope that answers your question. The next question is, how can we learn about tools for the first detection? So see, some Now it depends upon the file type. If you're talking about JavaScript, batch files, or PowerShell files, you do not need to have tools, but these are just scripting languages. So you can open them in a normal editor like Notepad++, Sublime Text, and you can go through the code and you can see what is happening over there. Now, apart from these, there are other kinds of initial stage loaders also. For example, PDF, doc files, OLE files. Again, I mentioned about shortcut files. So for these files, there are tools which are available. Like if you set up Remnux Linux in your system, as a virtual machine, you will see that the Remnux already has tools like PDF dump, OLE dump. So these tools are pretty good for identifying and analyzing those kinds of file types. Okay, how about a Dockerized? Oh, just a minute. What do you want to know for Dockerized environment, if it gets infected or something, like whether multiple runtimes on a container? See, if one of the Docker got infected and if the malware is a worm, then all of them will get infected. But I'm not sure what you're asking about. You can please elaborate meanwhile I'm answering the other question. So see, some kinds of phishing tests or phishing drills, they happen to make the users more aware. And why is it important? At which point it is important? It is important, you can always ignore the spam. The phishing emails majority of the times come into our spam folder. We do not even check that on a very regular basis. But these kind of drills that happen, they happen in an organization where they have observed that the attacks happen through employees' user intervention. So the user is not aware that it is a phishing page. And that is where these things are important. And these things are important for creating awareness, and they may come under the Red Teaming Act, which is important for the security of an organization. So if you have received a file from somebody, whether it is secure or not, so if you are an analyst or a researcher, you can do the analysis by yourself, but there are virus total. So if the file is not confidential, like if you're allowed to share the file into third-party websites, then you can upload the file in VirusTotal or any.run or any online sandbox, which will analyze it for you and give you a verdict whether it is malicious or not. Now, if that is confidential and you're not allowed to share it elsewhere, then you can check the MD5 or hash of the sample and see if it is already present in VirusTotal or not, instead of uploading it. Again, if it is present, it will give you a verdict. If it is not present, then you have to do some sort of analysis by yourself. If you know analysis, and if it is a PDF file, you can use PDF parser tools, which are readily available, open source they are. You can download them. You can see some, you can check from the net how to run them. I've also mentioned it in my channel also. You can check there from there also. So how you can analyze a PDF sample or any other kind of sample. So at that point of time, you have to do some analysis. While doing analysis for identifying if it is malicious or not, you need to understand what do we call as malicious. Is it trying to run some commands which normally a PDF sample will not run? For example, if your PDF sample ends up running some command line arguments, then of course it is pretty suspicious. Whether the PDF is trying to connect to a server, you did not even click on any link, but on opening the PDF, it is connecting to a server. Is it trying to do something like that? These are some kind of indicators of compromise from where you can understand if it is performing some malicious activity or not. Do I recommend any guidance for software developers that is safe? See, of course, you will have to follow some security rules that are present over there for, secure code practices that you need to follow. For example, if you're writing a very basic web page where you have to take an input, then make sure that what kind of input should be allowed. Some validation and verification should be there. If there's a login page, then you have to look at the authentication. If there is a if there is a web page, for example, if we take example of WordPress, there are different roles for different users, for like admin, normal user. Then you have to see the authentication and authorization at that point of time. So you have to keep all these things in your mind. So secure coding practices is one thing that, like if you look for this, you will find all these details about it, like how you can make it less like flawless and less with vulnerabilities. Now, nothing can be 100% secure. Again, that is something that I keep on saying. So you have to make sure that you are using an updated version and the current solution or the current functions that are used everywhere. Advanced techniques to ensure robust authentication and session management to mitigate broken authentication vulnerabilities. I am sorry, I won't be able to answer that question. I do not work related to this, although I know how you can perform, bypassing authentication techniques and all, but the mitigation part is something that I'm not aware of. I'm really sorry. Okay, so I do not see any more questions. So if you have any more questions, you can reach out to me through my LinkedIn, Twitter. I can answer. I'm pretty active over there. You can subscribe to my channel if you want to learn about malware analysis. And if there are any other questions, please mention. I'll be more than happy to answer. I think we can conclude. I think they don't have any more questions. Okay, how to detect new ransomware? See, detection of new ransomware, you have to be very proactive, first of all, for that. Detecting a new ransomware or any kind of new vulnerability is not very easy, or not something that it is very much possible. So any kind of ransomware, if you talk about a very generic ransomware family, what they will be having is, there are certain things that they do is pretty common, like dropping ransom notes, encrypting the files. Now it depends, are they encrypting the files or they encrypting the MDR, whatever they want to encrypt. So there are functions, certain functions that they would use, which is pretty common. Maybe they'll use a different kind of injection techniques, but the certain things will be very same. So in general, if you want to, detect the ransomware, you have to look for those kinds of common and generic processes. Again, this is not something very easy to do, but that is one thing that one can try doing. With new ransomware coming into picture, if you talk about, they will have different traits, they will have different ways to encrypt the device, they will have different ways to, share their ransom note. So if you have gotten aware of the new ransomware, that this is what is something that it is doing differently, then we will have to add a detection on the basis of that. Now it depends again on the detection team, how they are working on that. Okay, how do I hope that answers your question related to the new ransomware thing. How do I ensure compliance with regulatory requirements? I'm sorry, I do not ensure the thing. I'm just a malware researcher and analyst, so I do not do that. I am not the right person to answer that. I'm really sorry. For internship in cybersecurity field, I think you will get a lot of opportunity. I would suggest you to clear your basics, and sometimes when you are like you're solving hack the box, those VMs from hack the box, or Try Hack Me or other platforms that are present already, if you solve a lot of them, and when you become a person who has been solving all those things, they automatically identify you as someone who already knows, and at that point of time also it becomes very easy to get internship. So those are certain ways how you can try, and it is always possible to find internships in the cybersecurity field. Any more questions? If we do not have any more questions, we can conclude. Um,
Okay, there is any question again? If no any question, we can to close the session. You can, if you have any question, you can send email or contact the speaker. Mas, this is question.
um, for searching malware, VirusTotal, any.run, the Zoo is one GitHub repository. Zscaler has their own repository, which is quite specific to ransomware, I guess. Malware abuse, malware bazaar abuse. There are some, these are just websites from where you can download some common malware. I don't think there are tools. You can use the APIs for searching for the malware, and you can simply Google the malware. I'll just mention it over here. There are online sandboxed environments which perform like to a certain extent. There are free services that they provide. For example, again, VirusTotal is one such. Any.run is there. Triage is one which performs which gives amazing report. So they are kind of sandboxes which will give you good analysis reports. Joey Sandbox. So these are all available. So if you open VirusTotal, you will see all those sandboxes that VirusTotal already uses. So if I mention some of them, for free, you can actually use these. But for uploading and running your malware, you won't be able to download from VirusTotal unless you have a premium account. But from any.run, Triage, you can download. And also you can collect malware from here also. I've mentioned it in the group. These are some of them. Of course, there are plenty of other platforms also. These are some which I follow. When I use open source JavaScript for the web pages, isn't JavaScript already open source? And if you're talking about resources, see, I am not a developer, so I do not do any kind of development. I do analyze. And if you ask me to analyze a JavaScript, I'll take it to locally in my virtual machine. I won't be using any cloud for that. I don't require basically cloud or something. But for JavaScript, for using JavaScript in my web applications, I do not do that. So I don't think, again, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person to, provide an answer for that. Now it depends if we have got any ransomware attack, if it is specific to organization, if your organization is infected, if your personal device is infected. In any cases, there is no guarantee of paying the ransom to them and getting back your data. But again, if this is an organizational based attack that has happened, or if it is a targeted attack that has happened, you may get your data back. But again, there is no guarantee. Another thing is we have to be prepared, because we cannot, always prevent these kinds of attacks. Every time new attacks will come into picture, and we have to be aware. So we have to have our backups, and the backups should be somewhere at that place where we know that it won't be get infected by any kind of attacks. Otherwise, if the backups also get infected, then there's no use. Now, at the personal level, if you are infected with ransomware, with a new ransomware, it depends what kind of ransomware is it. If it is just encrypting all your files, again, backup is a solution on the personal level also. But since this is only an individual, you can format your device and you can have a proper cleanup of your device. There are tools for that, like there are certain antiviruses which will take a proper take care of all these things. And if it is an MDR, then I'm not sure whether formatting will help or not. But then the device is already corrupted, because I don't think at that point of time anything will happen. And again, if it is an organization app, and if you see that any system is infected with ransomware, disconnect it from the network. And meanwhile, you perform the analysis. Meanwhile, you try to do what you can do. Disconnect it from the network so that you can avoid spreading that infection to other devices. Yes, it is possible to embed malicious JavaScript in images, PDF, anything. Anything can be embedded anywhere. Now it's totally possible. It depends when the user accesses the images, sessions can be stolen or not. It again depends, because at those points of time, they are not trying to steal the cookies. Now, when will we try to steal your cookies? If I am like here, Zoom, in the Zoom application, if you share some link with me and I click on that link, this is the point where I'll be scared that my credentials, my cookies, my authentication session, whatever is required, that is getting stolen. But if something is getting downloaded into my device, I am not worried about the cookies anymore. If I end up downloading some image file which has some embedded script within it, I am pretty sure that it is going to disrupt my device. It is going to infect my device. It is not going to just steal my cookies. The cookie stealing part was specific to the browser and the web page till the time we were there. I hope that answers your question. Any more question?
Okay, Miss. The time is will over.
Yeah, no problem.
If enough, we can close the session. Thank you for all to attend this webinar.
Thank you so much for
We
having me.
will nice to having you, Miss Energy.
Thank
Okay,
you. Yeah.
thank you all. Thank you.